Hi, I'm Avery Nowicki. I'm the communities editor of the Capilano Courier, as well as the writer for Literarily Speaking, a literary column where we talk about books every month. Books find me, or did I find books? I think my mom had the biggest influence. She used to read me, you know that book 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea? She used to read me that one, and then Alice in Wonderland and stuff when I was a kid. And so those really laid a good foundation. But after that, I got full into books by myself. I used to go to Scholastic Book Fair every single year, and I'd buy all the books that I liked. Reading was definitely my safe haven. It was definitely all me. Did family or friends show support, or were they against my reading habits? I think I was definitely always a very extroverted person. So it was not I was definitely never shy. I used to do the singing in my school. I would dance. I was in all my plays. I was super out there. So for me, I think reading was the one thing my family never noticed. It was my secret little thing that I would do. Nobody cared. Nobody knew about it. I was obsessed with it. But I think because I was so extroverted everywhere else, people never thought of me as a shy person who needed to get out there more. It was good. Do I feel at any point that my reading was getting out of control? Yes. I think in my John Green phase, which I talked about in Literarily Speaking, I had a little bit where I talked about that YA phase, or when I read The Hunger Games, or those were bad. I think those were the first times where I was so obsessed with reading these books, and I read everything by one author. It was a problem. That was my worst reading habit time. Okay, how much time do I spend in libraries? Has it increased or decreased? I started working at a library in my freshman year of high school. I worked at my school's library with the librarian. It was really cool. And and I would help her put up the bulletins, and I would help pick all the monthly books. So I think that was the peak of my spending time in libraries. I was it was all the time. But now I work in a library almost every day, and I would say I go to a library to get books probably about once a week. So it's a lot. It's definitely my favorite place. What are my top 3 factors when choosing a library or bookstore? Okay, number 1 is the staff. If you have people who are really nice, and especially people selfishly who are like me, who love reading and can be really nerdy, those are super fun because they just they know everything. It's great. And then number 2 is a cozy environment. I feel Indigo's a funny example because it's very corporate, but anyone who grew up especially if you grew up in Canada and you used to go to chapters as a kid, Indigo just feels a very homey place, and I love everything that they sell. It makes me feel very at home. It's great. And then I don't know what number 3 would be. I guess number 3 if they have every book I ever want. I hate when I go to a bookstore and they don't have what I want. It's the worst feeling in the world. What is special about Indigo? You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Chapters, the bookstore, now has become Indigo, and they are the same company, but don't really know. But as a kid, I remember being at dance classes with my friends, and we did a dance competition once, and we all went to Chapters, which they used to have a Starbucks attached to every single bookstore, which was the best thing ever. So we would get unicorn frappuccinos, and we'd walk around the bookstore without our parents, and I felt such a grown-up. I was this is the best thing in the whole world. It was just a combination of all the things I really liked. There was Starbucks, there were books, it was a good time. It was just great. I love Indigo. Okay, so we may or may not have been told that we could not film in Indigo, which makes sense. So we're at our lovely home library. We're at Capview Library right now, which is good because it's a Saturday and it's very dead here. So we're going to take you a little round on all the places I like to go when I come here nearly every single school day. And I'll show you all my favorite sections. We'll look at all my favorite books. It's going to be super fun. Okay, go on. For me, the Capview Library is definitely where I tend to spend the most amount of my time. The sections here that they have both on either V-sides and then on the ones behind you are usually what I look to most. Even if I don't go to the library, I will stop in and look at these literally every single day I'm here. For example, this one's on Sexual Violence Awareness Month, which I find to be particularly interesting, including this one here I was just looking at on writings from the Me Too movement. I've read a couple of books in this genre and always tend to kind of gravitate towards it. So for example, if I was here just in the middle of classes wasting time, I would absolutely come, and I honestly would probably come take this out. It seems definitely up my alley. But my favorite thing about Capview Library is they've got always different sections of stuff going on. So this is where I tend to go the most. Okay, so now we are in the new item section, which, funny enough, is my absolute favorite section of the entire library. Not only this library, but also VPL has a great new item section. Anything new and exciting, I'm all over. So this one in particular is great. If we look at give me the head of Quentin Tarantino. I won't even lie to you, I was going to take this out 2 days ago and I forgot to. So look at that, isn't that great? But I tend to find most of the books that I want to buy or that I want to take out usually here, and if not here, then usually at one of the other selected sections. The other one over there is also magazines. We'll go see the magazines next, but those are also one of my favorites. But I feel like new items, I can't skip it. It's my favorite section always, forever. Didn't even see it there, sorry guys. I was just busy reading The New Yorker, so classic Avery. Funny actually that I show you this. Check out this fun comic in The New Yorker. This is great. One of my favorite things about the Capu Library particularly is that they've got a lot of good magazine archives. They don't keep everything, which kind of makes sense because it could add up after a while. But this one here, for example, is a February issue from 2020 of The New Yorker, which is great because you can look back and see the way that we reacted to things like COVID and the cultural landscape and all of that. And rereading some of these articles is really fun. It gets more fun every single time you do it, which is great. That might be kind of nerdy, but it's really fun, I promise. So they've got those, which are good, and then they also have magazines like Broken Pencil, which is Toronto-based. I've written for them a couple times, and they've got really good stuff. And then also places like the New Quarterly you can get here. All my favorite magazines are here throughout these couple sections, and it is really fun. I feel like if I'm gonna go look at some older books anywhere, it's always here. I'll take 10 magazines out and just I'll just go through every single one. They're great. Yeah. Now we are in the silent part of the library. If it was not a Saturday and not during exam season, it would be super packed in here. We'd have to whisper, but there's actually nobody here, so that's great. I'm going to take you through some of the sections over here, which are some of my favorites, and we'll look at some classic literature, a little bit of children's literature I find really interesting, some Roman, some Greek. It's going to be a great time, so follow me. Okay, guys, I found a couple of interesting books. We were just thinking about, when I'm in a library, do I have a tendency to take way more books than I can handle? The answer is always, 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 always yes, and today was no exception. I found Zola, who's an author I've read a couple times and is really great. I found The Charterhouse of Parma, which I got somebody else for Christmas, but I selfishly really want to read. And I also got Colette, who I love. I got this one thing from her from Spartacus Books. She's the best. I'm super excited. But, great example to think about. When I'm at a library, I have a tendency to take way more books than I can possibly read. 90% of the time, they stay in my apartment, I forget about them, I rack up a lot of bills at the library. It's really bad. This is definitely, as much as this section is really fun, it's a dangerous place for me to be. It's not good. Okay, now we're in the Canadian fiction section, which is a personal favorite of mine. I'm going to tell you about some personal good memories I have with one book, and also some do's and don'ts I have in the library because I'm obviously a seasoned pro. The two books I have with me are The Diaries of Franz Kafka, obviously, and Any Other City, which is this really great book that I picked up actually at a Vancouver Public Library reading. The author came in and did this really, really great reading, and I bought the book off of them, and it's been signed. It's really great. So things like that, I think, are not only really good experiences that I've had at local libraries, but are things that I think have really shaped me as a reader. Going to readings, especially at libraries, especially because they're usually free, are so good. They're actually the best things ever, and I think they really have helped me figure out what I want to do as a reader. So this was a really good one. And then what I was thinking about with Franz Kafka, I think in a library we kind of, especially in ones like these where there's lots of sections, and at least for me, it's easy to get wrapped up looking at fancy old literature and oh, I'm so fancy. but in reality, Kafka is great, and everybody should read him at some point. But also I think during my day-to-day, I don't really want to spend all my time reading these really dense classic literature pieces, because I think it can get a little bit overwhelming. So another thing I would suggest to someone who is maybe not so much like me and not let's say a seasoned pro at the library, maybe you're a little new to it, I would start out with sections that feel familiar. For me, we're in the Canadian authors 2004 to present. I feel like that's a good time because you get a little bit more contemporary, but you kind of have a big range. Places like these are usually where I gravitate to, because if you go back to 1600s English literature, or you're looking at, again, people like Kafka, it can be really hard to not feel overwhelmed. But I think anything in that range can be really exciting, and there's some really, really good authors here. But yeah, those are always my favorite to look at. Thank you very much for my little tour around the library. You can find more of me talking about books and library things in every single column section of the Capilano Courier. In Literary Speaking, I'll talk about a bunch of books that I'm interested in and variations of things like that. It's always really fun. I'm glad I got to show you around some of the book sections I tend to go to. I feel like for me, libraries are really important and like they mean a lot to who I am as a person. Especially also, I've got this big dream of like starting my own little bookstore when I'm an old lady, and every time I go into a library or a bookstore, I get little pieces of inspiration that I think will kind of tie together my original vision of this like really great bookstore. Yeah, but books are so great. Okay, thank you.